The female reproductive system. The formation of gametes in females is called ovogenesis. The gonads, sex glands, are represented in women by the ovaries and have a dual function. Endocrine involves the secretion of female sex hormones, estrogen and progesterone. Exocrine. This refers to oogenesis, that is, the process by which stem cells known as ovogonia develop into female gametes, or oocytes too. The two key differences in gonadal activity between males and females are that, in women, this activity is limited in duration, from puberty to the menopause, whereas in men, this activity declines gradually, but does not cease. Cyclical, whereas in humans it is continuous. In women, the female reproductive system comprises two groups of organs, internal and external. The external are visible genitalia, which include the vulva and the breasts. The internal reproductive organs, not visible, located in a woman's lower abdomen and comprising the ovaries, the fallopian tubes, the uterus and the vagina. The internal genital organs. The ovaries. The ovaries are the female gonads. They are located in the upper part of the pelvic cavity, one on each side of the uterus. They are almond-shaped organs, measuring approximately 3 cm long, 2 cm wide and 1 cm thick. They are located in the lower part of the iliac fossae. They have two sides, inner and outer, and two edges, anterior and posterior. They show two areas in a sagittal section. A cortical area, or cortex. A medullary zone or medulla. Cortical area or cortex. Thick and located on the periphery, it comprises, from the outside in, the ovarian epithelium, simple cuboidal epithelium resting on a basement membrane. The ovarian albuginia, connective tissue membrane. A cortical stroma, composed of fibroblast-like cells and connective fibers, within which ovarian organelles of varying sizes, from 50 m to 25 mm, and diverse structures, can be distinguished. Follicles, corpus luteum are the product of follicular development. Atretic bodies, the result of the degeneration of follicles and corpus luteums. Medullary zone or medulla. It occupies the central part of the ovary and consists of loose connective tissue containing blood vessels, lymphatic vessels and nerves. The ovaries are attached to the upper and lower poles by ligaments, fibrous extensions, known as ovarian ligaments. Ovarian suspensory ligament, lumbular ligament at the upper pole, extending from the lumbar wall to the ovary. Tubo-ovarian ligament, a fibrous bundle connecting the ovary and the fallopian tube. The proper ligament of the ovary, utero-ovarian ligament at the inferior pole, another supporting and stabilizing structure that connects the ovary to the posterior part of the uterus. The process of oogenesis. Oogenesis takes place in the ovaries, and these initial stages begin during fetal development, from the 3rd month onwards. Oogenesis consists of 3 phases: multiplication, growth, maturation. In other words, there is no differentiation phase in oogenesis, unlike in spermatogenesis. A multiplication phase. It concerns oogonia, small spherical cells, 15 m, diploid cell lines, 2N chromosomes, 2q DNA, observed in the cortical zone of the embryonic ovary. This phase is characterized by a series of mitotic divisions that result in the formation of primary oocytes, larger cells, 20 to 40 m, that are also diploid, 2N chromosomes, 2q DNA. The exact number of divisions is unknown, but approximately 7 million primary oocytes are formed. In women, this phase occurs during the fetal stage, from the 3rd to the 7th month, in the fetal ovary. B. Growth phase. It is characterized by a very significant increase in the size of the primary oocyte, which grows from 20 to 120 m in diameter. It should be noted that a large number of primary oocytes regress between birth and puberty. Only 400,000 will remain by the time they reach puberty. Fewer than 500 will develop to the point of ovulation during a woman's reproductive life. Primary oocytes begin their first meiotic division, but do not complete it until puberty. They double their DNA content, 2qDNA 4qDNA, and remain in this quiescent state until puberty. CO maturation phase. Every month between puberty and the menopause, at the time of the ovulation, the primary oocyte, 2N chromosomes, 4qDNA, completes the first division of meiosis and produces a secondary oocyte, N chromosomes, 2qDNA, with the release of the first polar body, N chromosomes, 2qDNA. This division is highly uneven. The oocyte 2 retains all of the cytoplasm. Immediately afterwards, the second meiotic division begins. However, the process stalls once again. During the metaphase of the second division, incomplete meiosis, and is determined by whether or not fertilization occurs. If fertilization does not occur, the egg cell remains at this stage of meiosis and then degenerates rapidly. If fertilization occurs, the secondary oocyte will complete its maturation and develop into a mature egg, releasing the second polar body. The stages of oogenesis. Timeline of oogenesis. Note: in the outer region of each ovary, there are small clusters of cells, known as primary follicles, each containing an immature gamete. At the start of the 28th day of the ovarian cycle, a group of follicles begins to develop, but only one will complete the full process. The ovarian follicles secrete estrogen, which causes the lining of the uterus to develop. Midway through the cycle, the mature follicle, containing an almost mature egg, forms a bulge on the surface of the ovary and releases the egg. This process is known as ovulation. After ovulation, the follicular cells form the corpus luteum, which secretes progesterone and estrogen, which also act on the endometrium of the uterus. Folliculogenesis. It refers to a gradual process leading from a simple, small structure, the primordial follicle, to a complex, large structure, the mature follicle. The follicle goes through several stages of development, which are primordial follicle, preantral follicle, cavitary or antral follicle, mature follicle, or de Groff follicle, or preovulatory follicle. A primordial follicle. This is the smallest follicular unit, 50 to 80 m in diameter. It includes the primary oocyte, stalled in meiosis 1, surrounded by a layer of follicular cells, separated from the ovarian stroma by Slavjansky's membrane. The preantral follicle. It is larger, 180 to 500 m, due to the growth of the oocyte. The oocyte is surrounded by a thin hyaline membrane, the zona pellucida, visible under a light microscope. The follicular cells multiply and arrange themselves in around 20 layers around the oocyte. They form the granulosa. The innermost layer of the granulosa cells, arranged in a regular pattern around the zona pellucida, is called La corona radiata. C. A cavitary or antral follicle. Its diameter ranges from 0.3 to 15 mm. It is characterized by The formation within the granulosa of a cavity follicular or antrum, containing follicular fluid. The differentiation of the peripheral connective stroma into two layers, or the chi, through which capillaries run, the inner theca cellular and the outer theca fibrous. As the follicular cavity gradually enlarges, the follicular cells are pushed outwards. D. Immature follicle, or de Groff follicle, or PRE ovulatory follicle. In women, it measures between 12 and 25 mm in diameter. Filled with follicular fluid, it takes on a cystic appearance and protrudes from the surface of the ovary. It ruptures at the time of ovulation, thereby releasing the female gamete, which is ready to be fertilized. The two trumpets, right and left. D. Immature follicle, or de Groff follicle, or PRE ovulatory follicle. In women, it measures between 12 and 25 mm in diameter. Filled with follicular fluid, it takes on a cystic appearance and protrudes from the surface of the ovary. It ruptures at the time of ovulation, thereby releasing the female gamete, which is ready to be fertilized. The two trumpets, right and left. Women have two fallopian tubes, also known as fallopian tubes, which are situated on either side of the uterus and are approximately 10 centimeters long. They enable the sperm to reach the egg and facilitate its transport to the uterus. Once the egg has been fertilized, fertilization takes place in the outer third of the fallopian tube. The trunk can be divided into four segments. The isthmus, which is the narrowest part of the fallopian tube. Histological structure. 3 tunics. Mucosa, an irregularly shaped lumen lined by simple columnar epithelium comprising 2 cell types. The hair cells, which are more numerous during the ovulatory phase, and whose movements vary depending on the phase of the cycle. The so-called intercalated glandular secretory cells. Beneath the epithelium, the basal lamina, followed by the chorion, which is composed of loose, vascularized connective tissue. Muscular, 2 layers of smooth muscle cells, an inner circular layer and an outer longitudinal layer. It is very thick at the isthmus. Is very well supplied with blood. Peristalsis varies depending on the phase of the cycle. Active movements occur during ovulation. Serosa, connective tissue lined by the peritoneal serosa. Function. The egg is transported to the uterus by ciliar movement and muscle contractions. Nutrition of the egg via secretion by glandular cells. Migration and survival of sperm from the uterine cavity to the site of fertilization. Migration and survival of sperm from the uterine cavity to the site of fertilization. Increased mobility. Changes to the plasma membrane. Note: the fallopian tubes can be the site of ectopic pregnancies, known as extrauterine pregnancies, EUP. The uterus. Located between the bladder and the rectum, it is a hollow, unpaired, midline organ which comprises uterine fundus, the rounded upper part where the fallopian tubes attach. The body, with the 2 tubes attached to the upper edges. The cervix, the narrowest part of the uterus, which opens into the vagina. In women who have never been pregnant, nulliparous women, the uterus is approximately 7.5 centimeters long, 5 centimeters wide and 2.5 centimeters thick. It is larger in women who have been pregnant and smaller when sex hormone levels fall, as happens after the menopause. Roles. It causes menstruation. Provides a home for the fetus and supports its development. He delivers the baby during childbirth. Internal structure of the uterus. Myometrium, the uterine muscle, consisting of an extremely thick layer of smooth muscle fibers. Endometrium, a highly vascularized lining of the uterus that lines the uterine cavity, consisting of functional layer, the layer of the endometrium that thickens during the menstrual cycle and sheds during menstruation. Endocervical glands, glands located in the cervix that secrete a translucent, stringy mucus, which may or may not allow sperm to pass through, known as cervical mucus. Peritoneum, the serous membrane lining the outside of the uterus. The vagina. It is an elastic muscular tube that extends from the vulva, external genitalia, to the cervix. It is approximately 8 centimeters deep. Located between the bladder at the front, the rectum at the back and the uterus at the top. It is directed obliquely upwards and backwards, where it attaches to the uterus. A thin, vascularized fold of mucous membrane borders and partially closes off the lower end of the vagina, the hymen. The hymen has one or more openings to allow menstrual blood to pass through. It tears during the first sexual intercourse. Roles. The vagina is used for sexual intercourse. It serves as a passageway for the baby during childbirth. Types of hymen. External genitalia. The vulva. It refers to the female external genitalia as a whole. The vulva comprises the following parts. The mons pubis, or mons veneris, is a triangular protrusion with its apex pointing downwards, located in front of the pubic symphysis, consisting of a mound of fatty tissue covered by skin and hair. The labia majora, 2 folds of skin covered in hair. The labia minora are 2 folds of skin that are thinner than the labia majora and protect the entrance to the vagina and the urethral opening. The urethra is an opening through which urine is passed. The clitoris is an erectile, stimulatable organ of pleasure, equivalent to the penis in men. The vaginal opening. This is the opening of the vagina at the vulva, which is covered by the hymen in a virgin girl. The vulvar glands, these are the minor vestibular glands, sebaceous and sweat glands. Skene's glands, located near the urethral opening. The Bartholin's glands. They are located at the entrance to the vagina. These glands secrete a substance that lubricates the vagina during sexual intercourse to facilitate penetration by the penis. The mammary glands. Each breast forms a hemispherical protrusion situated on the surface of the pectoral muscles and the serratus anterior. The tip of the breast features the nipple, which contains numerous milk ducts through which milk flows. The nipple is surrounded by a ring of pigmented skin known as the areola. Inside the breast is the mammary gland, which produces, secretes and ejects milk. These phenomena constitute lactation. The menstrual cycle. The menstrual cycle involves a series of changes that take place in the endometrium, the innermost layer of the uterus, of a pregnant woman. Every month, the endometrium prepares to receive the fertilized egg, which normally develops into an embryo and then into a fetus until birth. When fertilization does not occur, the functional layer of the endometrium is shed in the form of a period. The menstrual cycle lasts an average of 28 days and consists of 2 phases. The follicular or preovulatory phase, lasting from the 1st to the 14th day of the cycle. The luteal or postovulatory phase, from the 14th to the 28th day. These 2 phases are separated by a process that occurs on the 14th day of the cycle, ovulation. The phases of the menstrual cycle. 1. Pre-ovulatory phase. This is the period between menstruation and ovulation. It is the most variable in terms of duration compared to the other phases, lasting from the 6th to the 13th day of a 28-day cycle. This phase is characterized by a rise in estrogen levels and the development of the follicle. 2. Ovulatory phase usually occurs on the 14th day, characterized by the rupture of the follicle, which leads to the release of the egg. 3. Post-ovulatory phase. This is the phase with the most consistent duration, lasting from the 15th to the 28th day in a 28-day cycle. The symptoms associated with this phase vary depending on whether fertilization has taken place or not.